crazy, doing all that kind of shit. It's literally digging pits into my skin, picking at my scalp, doing a lot of self-infliction. That's where a lot of the hyperactivity manifests for me, because I knew that was the way I could do it without bothering other people and getting into trouble.
Whereas with me, they would be like, he can't sit still, but he can read a book at a college level, so he must be fine. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of that.
Oh, you both are claiming the ADHD?
No, I have diagnosed. Like, I take medication for it and shit. And
You take medication for it?
No.
I've been prescribed medication before as well.
Damn, you don't take it though.
So when I was
medication
prescribed
right
it, yes, actually, that is part of it.
Absolutely.
But when I was diagnosed,
you got a speedball going on over there.
Yeah.
they didn't give me time release. They gave me like auto release.
Doesn't mean I'm not.
And the doctor didn't give me a prescription like timeline. He just said take as needed. And a big part of ADHD is not really being able to read your body or know when you need to do things. So I lost track writing a paper, and I woke up the next morning and it felt like there were bugs crawling in my kneecaps.
Were there?
No, obviously,
Interesting.
unfortunately. And I had to call it. I called the suicide hotline because I was too afraid to. I did not want to bother my roommate with it because she did not know me well enough. And I was like, I don't want you to know how freaked out I am right now. I went to my nurse practitioner. She gave me some anti-anxiety medication. I think it was like Loratab.
Ah, yes.
I was able to finally sit down. But then I didn't trust my legs to drive me home, so I walked home. No, I think I got a ride home that night. But I stayed away from stimulant medication up until recently. My partner's been diagnosed with ADHD, and he has let me take his Vyvanse a couple of times. My brain has never been quieter.
Is that good or bad?
Very good. Because, like, it's not like I'm competing with 20 different thoughts at a time to focus on the thing that's happening in front of me.
Had to get us.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
Corey.
Chwali. But
No, it was for Corey. It wasn't a like photo. Corey was like, "What's podcasting what's podding my cast?"
One of the other things that's pretty common with ADHD is emotional regulation issues, and that's one that I have a lot of struggles with.
I think most human beings in general struggle with that.
But like to the point that like I have meltdowns that I don't know why they're happening, and I don't know why I'm upset, but I'm upset. And they were a lot worse when I was younger, but they've gotten a lot better.
I'm of the root cause philosophy.
Yeah.
Like, you could see a therapist or a doctor for 10 years not have any honing in on anything. But if you could identify the root cause, then you could treat.
I definitely recognize a lot of the root causes.
Oh, right on.
Youngest of 7 children.
Okay.
Went to Catholic school.
Oh, you explored it. Okay. Cool. Right
So
on.
like I've been to therapy. I've done a lot of different things,
Right
and
on.
I've done a lot of like unpacking myself. And I also recognize a lot of the symptoms I have. My mom has as well.
So
And
it could
she
be
also
genetic.
struggles. Oh, absolutely. And she absolutely struggles with anxiety in the same way I do as well.
Right on.
And my sister got diagnosed as well.
That was why I got tested because
Your daughter.
my daughter she calls me one day and she's Dad,
You might need to relight it.
It
is dead.
There's plenty. Yeah.
She's like, Dad, I got ADD, and I think I got it from you. You should probably get tested too. And I was like, all right, honey. And then I went and talked to my doctor, and they were like, yeah, somebody should have said this a while ago. And like, there is definitely stuff where it's like, hey, you can figure out tools and systems, like having a list helps. All of the tips and tricks. But if there is a biochemical thing, like it's the same way like depression or like schizophrenia or anything that's just chemical works. Like if there's the possibility of doing something I just added a new thing to shift it. Like
let me make sure that's it. Yeah, that's the one I want.
Some of the ADD there. But like
we don't have to look at it right
if it
now.
was
I just
like
wanted it
AIDS
up.
or a cold, you would still take your medicine for it if there's something to improve your symptoms. And like the shit I take isn't like Adderall at all. It's called
isn't a stimulant.
It's called like amoxicillin.
That might have been what Corey was on initially.
And the issue is the thing is it doesn't tone anything down. Like I've done coke. It doesn't fix the problem. I just go like, okay, I'm focused on how unfocused I am. But on the stuff I take now, it's like I don't have panoramic vision. It comes into scale, so I can actually focus on the thing in front of me and maybe finish a list. Because like if I go when I've missed the medication, that's the times I'm most likely to be like, all right, I'm going to start the dishes. All right, but while the dishes are doing their thing for a second, I'm going to go start the laundry. And while that's going on, actually, I need a sandwich. And then it's like 45 minutes later, and I've started.
None of those tasks are done.
And I've started a bunch of them because I was like, oh, next thing on the list. And some of that's like.
And that's a bad thing?
When it's the end of the day and I've gotten nothing but a lot of things started. You know what I mean? Like if your whole day is starting things and none of them get finished because the next shiny thing, even if you're like, I want to do the thing that's in front of me that's important, like it's much easier to do when it's not so, I don't know, when it's not so
noisy.
Yeah. Like and like I was always worried like, oh shit, I'm going to lose something. Right, like I'm gonna lose whatever my connection to being on stage is, or my funny, or whatever. And like my ability, like a lot of the stuff I do is like, oh, like stand up D&D is all bop 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 bop, but clearly I haven't stopped going bop 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 bop.
Yeah.
And in general, what it means is I'm better at remembering like that idea that I had for a joke doesn't escape me. Like I remember to write it down instead of being like, oh, it's gone now. Like it's hard to explain when it's like it really is hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, listen to the things you do. I mean, I do laundry, the dishes, start a sandwich. I do that every day.
But
he also has a hole in his back.
But no, I'm saying,
and excruciating pain. So like if you aren't focusing, he can overexert himself to a point where it's going to be debilitating the next day because the amount of tasks.
But I mean with like 80.
That's part.
I mean, yeah, but I mean like with that, I don't mean like I do the dishes. I mean like I wash a plate. I wash a plate out of the whole sink load, and then I'm like, oh shit, I need a thing out of the laundry. And then I get like maybe 3 clothing items into the laundry machine. And then it's like, oh shit, well, I need to get a sandwich because I haven't eaten yet. Well, I guess I'll get out the bread for that. Oh, actually, I need to get the mail. And then at the end of the day, there's like one dish done, one clothing in the, like one pair of socks in the washer. Like the washer hasn't been started. Yeah. It's just gotten like maybe 2.5 clothing items in it. At the end of the day, it's like, well, cool. I've now accomplished nothing. And I know it because I can see the wreckage of my own.
I mean, if I'm taking that, what you're saying, then, you know, I could be diagnosed with ADHD. I'm almost burned my house down a handful of times just because, you know, I'm washing.
Yeah, you could have ADHD.
And I'll go put it on the fucking stove and it's like, it'll dry, but I'm going out the garage to go do this.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why we're actually here.
Alas, a homie
Charlie,
many moons ago, a homie approached me with a different philosophy to look at things. He's a borderline genius, maybe mildly something, whatever you want to call it. But he was like, when you do something, you know, it's a nail in the fence and you just hammer it, that nail in until it goes all the way in. He's like, me, I see all the nails. I like to tap them, not in any specific order. And I'll just tap them and tap them and tap them by eventually one gets tapped all the way in. I'm like, interesting. Not that I took it. I was like, yeah, go fuck yourself. But I could see how that style of do it when you can type philosophy.
No, I would like to be because you are correct, I believe, 9 times out of 10, if you can focus on a task and just get it done, then it's fucking done. And like when you can't manage shit the way I have been, it gets much harder. And like part of the reason I don't drink is it's like it makes that worse when I have to deal with a hangover and try to manage being a fucking nut job in the morning, like dealing with my body in addition to the brain. And like it's also been a special hell of like I want to do everything and then I also know anything can break me, and it's like I just am frustrated a lot.
Frustration. Interesting. Good word for it.
Okay. Just because it's like, well, no, it's like I used to be able to climb trees, man. I feel like if I was fully spined right now, climbing a tree wouldn't be too. I mean, I might have fallen out of more trees by now if I was fully spined, and that would be its own issue. But like, part of my struggle, I guess, has always been that it's like, yeah, I can see the things people with normal bodies can do, and I want to do them, and my brain is like, go do them. And a lot of my willpower is just like, yeah, but if we do that, that paralyzes us. Like that's just the end of.
I mean, that's being a realist too.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to do that because I want to live.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that
As I
there is
am.
a constant exertion of like there is the same unhinged 8-year-old that I think lives in like most a lot of other comedians' heads is totally in me, but there's also an old man's mech suit like around that person.
I'm familiar.
And it is
Have a conversation with that unhinged 8-year-old.
yeah, I usually do. It's about once a week. The therapist is good about that.
What do they call that? IFS, internal family systems, is the fucking.
It's one of the forms of therapy. I've
yeah.
learned. Do you know there's one called psychodrama?
I mean, you can call them whatever you want.
No, I work at I work at a wellness clinic. We provide mental health support, pain management, substance use support, etc. We do a lot of things. But when I did my department intro for the mental health program, I saw that as one of them, and I was just like, I just thought that was a movie genre. No, psychodrama. I was like, I just thought that was a movie genre, and she's like, no, yeah, it's a form of therapy, and I was just like, what a world. What a world.
I just gave a book. I've given it away 25 times. I just got one back and gave it to somebody else. Chasing the Tiger. Super great book. Peter Levine and his style of somatic experiencing seemed to be beneficial for some people. But I came along the lines of IFS with that and how they're all connected and whatnot. But I mean, there's tools out there.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, just gotta find what works for you.
I think the whole process of psychology, mental health in general, is all of us. We're just like wandering around blind like this, and occasionally touching things that are working. And it's really interesting to see how that evolves. Because like we can talk about a lot of the people previously in psychology. So you've got like your Freuds, you've got your B.F. Skinners, you've got all these folks who did help reveal things about the human condition, but also did a lot of harm in the ways that they did potentially misrepresent things or inject their own bias into the situation. And it's just, psychology is fascinating because we're literally studying ourselves and who's going to be more biased about themselves than themselves. And I really enjoy the research of study, and I enjoy just thinking about it. But it's also just like so unnerving how we can all be talking about the same thing but be in completely different places in
Perspective.
the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Empathy too.
I also think it's fun, or psychology has this cool thing. I think we can take shit that's broken sometimes and fix it and make it better. And like psychology sort of shows that because like all of the like the the what's that thing where the Oedipian complex. That's what
Oedipal complex?
Yeah, like the Oedipal complex where like everyone wants to fuck their mom. The Electric complex of like everyone wants to fuck their dad was them justifying to pedophiles why they were doing things. Your kid came onto you. That's because all kids just want to fuck their dad, and so like that's why it's not your fault. And in time, a bunch of that did get like examined. People were like, maybe kids don't have autonomy in this situation. Maybe the people in the power in this situation are fucked up. But maybe there is something to the fact that like we have this relationship between like sexuality and our parents or our understanding of our parents. And so, like, they don't use it the way Freud wrote it down or whatever that era did. But it can be a thing that you can use to explain, like, yeah, it is weird how I always go after fucking people that remind me of whoever. So, like, I don't know. I think it's a useful thing, if nothing, because it, like, shows that exists, that we can do that with tools. Right?
Interesting.
Like, swords to plowshares kind of shit.
You said you take medication for it, and you specifically said that it treats symptoms.
Yeah.
As a way of, we'll call them modern day healers. I don't know if we'll call them healers, but they manage symptoms for profit instead of healing.
Yeah, no. Well, like that's
getting back to root cause.
I mean, you're never going to give me back my childhood.
No, absolutely not.
So yes, in some sense, it is frustrating that we're only treating symptoms, but like to fully heal a lot of this is going to have to be us making decisions moving forward for the rest of us and accept that some of us are never going to be fully healed. And I will say that I feel much more capable of doing healing things when my symptoms are managed.
Excellent. Well put.
So, like, if my brain is quiet enough, it is easier for me to handle a client yelling in my ear about how they want to kill themselves because they won't be able to get 2 acupuncture treatments.
Would you prefer to? So you've done a lot of work on yourself.
I definitely have tried to. I feel like growing up as a woman in our world under misogyny and the patriarchy, I have to constantly do work on myself so that it doesn't bleed out and hurt other people or myself.
So you've done work on yourself, yeah?
Yeah.
And you've taken medication to help manage symptoms.
Yes.
If it was an option, if you saw a clear path to do really hard self-work to address root cause as opposed to taking medication to mitigate symptoms.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but that would also require that I wouldn't have to work full time, and I wouldn't have to deal with the other responsibilities.
Perfect storm. Perfect storm.
But yeah, I mean, sorry, that's our reminder to feed Harriet. She's probably yelling at them.
The cat.
My cat.
There's a small child.
The cat has a voice. Yelling.
She's a crab pot.
She knows when her dinner time is.
But like, I think in a perfect world, yes, it would be wonderful to do all that self-work, but I don't think there is anything wrong with using substances to manage symptoms.
Yeah, because it's
in relation to trauma.
That wasn't my question. Is like if you had that magic bullet that you can go do and address root cause to have a
I don't know if root cause is possible to be addressed in our current society,
but
though.
it's also a little to me like being like, all right, well, if you eat right, will you quit taking your insulin medicine to somebody with diabetes? Because it's like there is stuff that we know that is like,
there is stuff that I can manage through self-work, but I think there's some literal brain chemistry things that are so fucking tweaked that there's no amount of inner work that wouldn't mean I would have to find outside forms of self-soothing.
And I don't mean to equate diabetes to ADHD in that, like, if I forget my ADHD medicine, I'm very much less likely to die other than, like, walking in.
Yeah, you don't have a monitor.
Like, yeah.
You need shit now.
But, like, it is, I have a similar conversation with my other mother all the time of, like, like, she is clearly ADHD as fuck and refuses to admit it because she's like, I'm 67, they won't do anything to help me. And I'm like, yeah, but why waste the time you have left, right? Like, why?
It's her time.
Yeah, but, like, why not? If you have this time left, don't you want to enjoy it to the best of its ability? Also, you do enough drugs. Wait, are we on? You do enough drugs. It's fine. Like, but
is this thing on?
But like she takes stuff for her diabetes, and she will be like, oh, I can. If I don't take this, because I take this, I can eat normally. I can do normal, like not
normally, yeah.
But like if she's paying attention to her stuff, and like to a certain degree, it's kind of the same way where it's like I don't know that the shit in my brain is specifically the way I was neglected. I think some of it is like just the way my brain is, and like if it wasn't that way, I don't know that I would be me. Sure, that's a conversation all on its own, but like. Managing the parts of me that are
managing the parts. I'm listening.
Yeah, no, it's just like I'm trying to make sure I'm weird about words sometimes because it's like I don't know if managing the parts is right, but it's if it's an illness and you don't do the things necessary to take care of it. And illness is a weird word too because that's a quantifier on it the same way. Like it's like disabled, right? It's like
circling back to the beginning. Yeah,
it's like you're fucked up is the way I honestly like phrasing it. Where it's like, hey, my brain's a little fuckety, right? And like the ways it's fuckety are definitely from trauma. I definitely have PTSD shit where it's like I will break down and cry from fucking the weirdest shit because it reminds me of a friend dying, right? Like, and that's different than the ADHD where it's like I said, I will, without certain, when I'm unregulated, I think is the term they use, right? Yeah. Whatever the phraseology is, I know what that feels like, and it doesn't feel well or good or like who I am, if that makes sense. The same way like being drunk isn't being me. And so like I take steps to not be drunk, i.e. I don't drink, the same way I like take steps to not be that kind of unavailable, ill. You know, it's because it's like I'm not going to be as useful of a dad if my whole day is, hey, honey, 1 minute, let me get to that. After I get to this, 1 second, honey, let me get to that. Whereas like your hammer method, if I can just fucking do the dishes, cool. Now, what do we do? What do we need, honey? Like it's more reliable. It's more.
I'm assuming you've heard of the spoon theory.
Please go ahead.
So the spoon theory is the idea that all of us start the day with a certain amount of spoons. And based on your level of ability, you will have more or less spoons. So someone with like a chronic pain issue would have less spoons than someone who does not experience pain. But obviously this is going to be an intersectional marker based on a lot of different things that make it harder to navigate through the world.
Mm-hmm.
My job takes a lot of my spoon. And I want to take medication so I can save more of those spoons for when I have my free time. Like, I want to not burn myself out emotionally on supporting people in crisis so that when I am home, if there's a problem at home, I can deal with it and then do something fun. Or something that is fulfilling to me and in my creative pursuits. So a lot about medication for me is wanting to get back more spoons.
It's like you can't, the thing, I didn't want to take medication for a long time because I was one of those people that was like, oh God, I'll lose touch with my creative voice or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, my other experiences with mental health medication have been feeling like a shell of a human being. So I have my reticence with using medication. But after having some experiences with medication recently, I have been much more motivated to seek that out. And also, I would love to do support groups for ADHD. I'd love to talk with other people who have the same experience as I do so that either I can see solutions in theirs or vice versa, or at least feel support in the struggles that I have to deal with on a regular basis.
And like
that's the kind of inner work I like to do, is more community based.
The thing I was gonna point out though, like my shrink was like, yeah, but all of your problem, like my thought process was kind of the same thing of like, if I can figure out the root problems, I get to them, and if I can figure out the situational factors. And then there was kind of this point where my shrink was like, hey man, nobody can prescribe you money. Like nobody can prescribe you the time and money you need for all of that. Like that's just a reality. And he's like a very anti-drug guy. Like he's not even because there's like psychologists and psychiatrists can prescribe you. Psychologists, basically just a person who can sit and listen to you, but like with a lot more steps. That undermines what they do, but that's not my point. My point is that like he's not somebody who was pro medication, but that was definitely something that got me to listen. Was to point out that like if you have tools, you have to use what you have. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know.
Good.
My mom's takes anti-anxiety medication, but she says it's for sleep.
Maybe it helps her sleep.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does.
Then it is.
But it's also for anxiety. You know, like when you see a person where it looks like they're holding their whole body together, just like as tight as possible? That's my mom all the time, no matter how relaxed she looks. Like there's just this like gentle tension in there.
So dysregulation of the nervous system.
Oh, absolutely. There's a large amount of dysregulation in my mom's nervous system.
So resetting the vagus nerve could help with that, and it's only a couple deep breaths.
But she refuses to go to Nevada.
She doesn't have to go to Nevada.
No.
Take a deep breath. Deep breath in through your nose.
Oh, she does that when she's mad. It's great. It's her great start.
A physiological sigh. I'm gonna reset that.
Oh no. There's a lot of that stuff.
Nice.
It's not the vagus nerve.
Pardon me? What did I say?
He was making a pun.
I was making a Las Vegas.
She refused to go to Vegas?
Yeah, like a.
No, I don't.
I was like, all right, maybe it was for help.
I didn't mean to. Maybe that'd be good for her. No, it's cool.
We did stay at the Circus Hotel in Reno when I was like 3 or 4.
Hey, I've been there.
I could not picture your.
I guess.
Fun.
I think like one of my aunts or uncles was there, and they were like, "You saw this waitress walk by, and you were just like enamored with her because she was just so tall and beautiful." And I was like, "I should have known all along." I should have known all along.
You're like, no, you should have been like, you guys knew this whole.
You guys knew this whole time and no one told me?
My brother the other day was, this cannot go in if we are recording, but was like, so.
Hit the button.
It was like.
I don't know what you
Ransomed.
0.
So you were ransomed twice.
I was ransomed at least 1.5 times.
At least 1.5 times.
1.5 times.
I know about.
So that's the family Pat's growing up in, and his brother's like, so were we abused?
Like, what I remember is my dad's Uncle Dave came and got me, and we went to a watering hole. You're fine. And I was just like, oh, cool, hanging out with Uncle Dave. And several years later, I was like 24, 23. I'd started comedy already, so I was like 25. And I was visiting my dad, and I was like, hey, I would love to go to that watering hole Dave took me to, because I don't remember anything about it. I just remember it was really isolated and great. It's like, yeah, I don't know where he took you when he kidnapped you. I was like, I beg your pardon? It's like, yeah, no, we owed him a bunch of money for like some shit, and I don't know where he took you. And I was like, this is the first time I'm finding out that I was kidnapped. And then I asked my mom, and she was, no, because it was, I think you thought it was more because I asked my mom, but she was just like, oh yeah, I thought I told you about it. I just forgot about it. And I was like, how do you forget about your kid getting kidnapped? Like, just, how is that just a thing?
Dissociation is a real way to deal with trauma.
I guess so, man.
Oh, yeah.
I guess
Oh,
so.
I know so.
No, I just said the thing about my brother, so I know so as well. But it's also wild, like, I don't know. It's just wild that, like, that was a great age to find out at. Like, also really weird way to find out I was my parents' favorite child. Like,
I like that. That's interesting. I like that.
I don't know who my parents' favorite kid is.
either that or maybe I was just the one that they noticed that they thought would, like, my parents would notice if I went missing.
Yeah.
They were like, they'll probably pay for this one to come back. He can read.
Yikes.
My parents both struggled with reading, and then that made them. That is kind of it goes back to that conversation about mental health, where it's like they both thought they were stupid when it was like, no, you have learning disabilities, and if you'd either had tools or if you'd had people in your lives who didn't just call you retarded because of it, like they would have been more competent and confident in a bunch of different ways, and like
Yeah,
it really.
I think that about a couple of my siblings as well, where it's like if they had been treated like they were as smart as they are, they wouldn't have a lot of the resentment that they have now.
Which is also kind of why I wanted Recyclables to exist, is because I know how many people think and feel that way. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I have some bright crawlers.
Trolley bright crawlers?
Bright crawlers. No, bright crawlers.
Tony,
the crunching is a pain in the ass on camera, so get it off, or on mic, so get it out of the way before we get too. I don't know how much of I assume that this will make patron cut, but I don't know what's in that. It just looks interesting. That was a bag I hadn't finished.
That's what I brought. That's my health food for the day. Oh, they're sour gummy worms.
Oh, yummy thing. Licky chewies.
And then a friend of mine made chocolate chip peanut butter cookies.
Delicious.
Yeah. And then I added weed to it and coffee, and now I'm ready to vibrate through solid. It halfway helped with the pain.
Is that the recipe?
Yeah. It's God, how do you say that guy's name? Ngayo. There's a comedian, a black dude. He's known for smoking weed.
Dave Chappelle.
No. It's like Ngayo Bellum, I believe.
Listen, we're treading into African names here, which are a real struggle because their languages are so much more beautiful than ours.
But here's a joke about he loves going golfing because you can do a poor man's speedball, which is the highest indica, highest indica and like 2 Red Bulls, and then you go golfing, and he's like, it's the greatest thing ever. Especially, he's like, especially if you can get into one of those real white clubs, and then he has like a joke about like, the more personal material at that point. But I always have thought of the weed speedball as I do things like this.
Yeah.
I could dig it.
That's how I used to write sets when I first started out. So when I first started doing comedy, I was in Missoula, Montana. There was only one mic a month. So I would prep for that mic.
I would say, yeah, you got a lot of time to get ready.
Honestly, I kind of liked it, and my writing process still hasn't recovered from that steady schedule. Moving out to Portland because there's a mic every night, and it's like every mic, well, it's a fucking Tuesday, gives a shit. So it's harder to know how to write for it.
No, I think we should start our own mic.
But I would drink a can of yerba mate, the Gayaki mint and lighten mint.
Yes.
And then I would smoke some weed because I was cool. I smoked weed in college. Yeah, I've been cool for a really long time. And I would just sit and write, and it was like that was like kind of the good way to get my focus in just the right way to.
Should I rip out
do the
my
writing.
old page and then do a new page? Should I rip out the old page of me and then like the new page? I think that was an egg. I can't remember what.
Why
my
were you
joke-
drawing? It almost looks like a lemon with an egg.
No, I don't know. I don't remember.
That is the Rorschach test.
Yes.
You've passed
Yes.
with flying colors.
Yeah, Pat always likes to say, "Why does it look like two of my parents fighting?" I'm like, "Shut up, Pat."
It's such a good joke. I saw it.
Pat
online.
uses it all the time.
I saw it online, and like I'm willing to admit when I steal jokes from online.
That's good.
No,
That's
and
a good place to steal from.
And I met Pat doing stand-up. I went to this mic where you do your set and then the comedians give you feedback on your performance.
Huh.
It was called Critical Comedy.
A learning session.
Yeah, and so that's how I first interacted with him. And then you and I were like the hosts on it one time when it was at like Canna in the City or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I've always appreciated about Pat is that he has a good way of giving constructive feedback to people who I just would tell to quit. I mean, I wouldn't tell them, but that's what I would want to say. So I wouldn't have anything nice to say because I was just frustrated because like there was a guy who he rewrote Let It Go to be about his wife and their open relationship, saying she's a hoe. And that was the chorus, like she's a hoe.
Oh, the song Let It Go. Okay. Right on.
She's a hoe, you know. And I know there's a group of people where that is a totally fine song to sing and they will enjoy that and that'll be fun. But I just told him, I was like, you may want to rethink of your wording on that because there are a lot of folks who do not like hearing women being referred to as a hoe. Not saying that that's something you have to do, but if you'd like your material to be more accessible to larger audiences, that was a recommendation. I was like, why don't you say like she's a go for everything you guys want to do? Because like then it's putting more power in her hands or like in the description of what she's doing. Okay, I'll do something.
I remember.
No, but
Lightning
to
bolt,
me,
lightning bug.
I remember
Yeah.
my note to dude was because his thing was he was like, "Oh, I'm a cuck."
okay, is that his thing? I don't think I ever listened.
That was part of his thing, and I was like, "Well, hey man, then like make sure you address some of that in the song, and make sure you're upfront that like I love this woman, and I want you to fuck her like a cum dumpster or whatever your brand is, like whatever your guys' pet names for your lovey-dovey names, right? Like you use whatever that is, and like just make sure people know that this is a person you care about. So when you deliver the punchline of she's a hoe, it actually hits harder. Because if you're sweet up front, people are like, oh, this guy's in love. And then if you're like bam, bam, bam with the gross, it's much funnier because you've kind of lured them in and made them ready for the punchline.
So I said my thing that is more just like I have a knee-jerk reaction to hearing that word and not enjoying it and know other people who feel that way. And then Pat's like, here, if you're going to say that. And that's how I have to write my material too, because I tell jokes about my abortion. And it's really hard to write jokes about an abortion. Especially one that you've had because either the audience feels bad for you or thinks you're a horrible person and you should go to jail.
It can be a
I mean, if you split them 50-50, that's great.
Yeah, right. It is one of the few jokes I have that I can feel the room split like that.
Awesome.
Sometimes it's fun. I've walked people before. I haven't walked anyone in a while though. So
I said it was a miscarriage of comedy, and nobody stopped me.
Well,
That's one of Patrice's, something I took away from Patrice on stage. It's like if you're not splitting the crowd 50-50, you're doing something wrong. You got to be,
I think you
comedians
have
being
to.
habitual line steppers, you got to push the limit so It's 50-50.
But you have to step on the line with good, like, not good intention, but you need to be really intentional with how you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, everything.
Like,
yeah.
So this is something that I feel like I butt up against a lot when I talk to people about comedy. Is they say like, oh, it's about shock value, or like, no, I'm overstepping on that. But it's like it's about crossing lines. It's about doing that, and it's like, you have to make sure you know where the line is so you know how to cross it. And if it's something that you don't have a large amount of experience with or isn't part of like your day-to-day life, it can be really easy to step over the line in a
You're a comedian.
unfunny way.
You should be able to do that. Yeah.
Well, it depends because you have like, I'm going to use some broad examples here, but you have like your Anthony Jeselnik, who's like, hey, I'm going to be up front, or to a lesser extent, who's that dude? Tosh, where it's like, I'm going to be the devil. I'm going to be upfront about the fact that I'm the devil, or everything I'm going to say here is going to be fucking awful, right? And that's a thing. But like being true to your intentions is also important in that it's like we're not philosophers or fucking clerics, or I don't mean to use D&D term, but
well, like we're not philosophers, we're not soothsayers, we're not oracles.
We're not shamans.
We just like to make people laugh.
So you're jesters.
Yes,
Yeah.
But with that said,
Perhaps the most important part in the court.
Yeah, but you have to know what the court is.
and if you're going to be honest about your intentions, to me, to a certain extent, that's also about being honest about your motivations. And for me, my motivations are to help, to heal, to make people learn, to make things accessible that are sometimes hard and scary to people.
Absolutely.
And to a lot of people, it's like, no, I just want to make other people feel bad because I felt bad. Or I just want money. And like, it's fine.
I mean, I do want to make people a little sad sometimes.
That's fine. But also, I mean, there are definitely some jokes that are way more for me than for the audience, 100%. But like, in general, I think our problem is that there's a lot of dudes who are willing to be grifters in the sense that they're like, hey, I'm philosopher, I'm thinker, I'm whatever. And it's like, well, no, you just got an agent and good equipment and people to work for you to do stuff. And like, that's how you get a lot of, not necessarily your Rogans, but a lot of other comedians turned podcasters that are like more famous.
Busted.
No, like
we're in so much trouble.
I don't mean like, I think we're a different thing where we're giving up on comedy. We're not trying to use it to...
You're giving up on comedy. I'm saying, why can't I quit you?
Yeah. Well, no, I think there are people that have... trying to think of like a classical example for me. Like the one that comes closest is like Stanhope, who's always been sort of honest about like, I don't think I'm a philosopher. I just like saying disgusting things and people who give me money for it when I can black out on stage. Right. And there's something there's an honesty to that I can respect that you don't see in a lot of other people where
I feel like Ron White might be another example of that.
Ron White is definitely like, no, I'm
Probably
a shitbag. I have no pretensions of any of this. I'm here to be funny in my way of being funny and drinking fucking rye whiskey and yeah.
There it is. I'm here to be funny.
Yeah.
So no matter what I say, you're coming to a comedy show. You could take it however you want. This is a comedy show. I'm a comedian. I'm a professional entertainer. You could split the crowd 50-50 by saying something off color, whatever you want to do. Alas, you came to a comedy show. If you don't want to laugh, that's on you.
Yeah.
Oh, no. And I'm not saying this in the sense of like you can't say things if you haven't experienced it. What I am saying is that if you really want to do a good job at stepping on the line, if you want to do a really good job of dividing the room and then reeling that other half back in with what you have to say afterwards, I think you have to really you need to know your intentions, as Pat is saying, in writing those jokes.
That's crafting a joke or crafting a book or any form
and I guess I say that
there's craft and there's there's the physical construction of the joke, and then there's the like
delivery.
Why are jokes and the what of jokes and the for whoth of jokes or whatever.
And I mean, there's a lot of people like this part can definitely be taught, but there's a lot of this side is going to be intrinsic, and it's going to just like make. I think for some people it can make or break their ability to really accomplish what I value in the genre.
And like the sad truth of stand up is it's like because it's a job where you don't have to do much, right? It will attract grifters just as much as it will attract like.
I have a friend who did comedy because he's like, well, it's a job where you can sleep in every day.
And like eventually.
And it blew my mind that was the thought. So I was like, I'd never thought about that part at all.
But like I do think you can debate some of the dudes historically. Like I think you could debate like Harlan and to a lesser extent like even Hicks as philosophical people because that's who they wanted to be, right? But I think taking some of the people out of like giving Chappelle philosophical context is tricky because it's like maybe early era Chappelle was putting some thought into some stuff, but I feel like nowadays he's much more like what will get a response to get a response to get a response to get viewership.
It's kind of like Dana Carvey's trajectory.
I guess.
Chappelle's thing, I mean, it's also experiential too.
Yeah.
You know, going into it, and he was like, the T's hate me. And he goes on to tell a story about how he has all these friends that are, you know, LGBTQ and he goes in and is like, well, this is my experience. I'm telling it from my perspective. Like you said, you got to have that experience so you can step on the line and cross it.
Yeah.
He's going to tell his perspective. Oh, and by the way, reeling him back in, I got all these friends too. I'm going to tell this story about the one that got so bullied, they jumped off a fucking roof and killed themselves about it. And if you don't like it, that's my perspective. Here it is.
I guess it's just like.
He does talk about it a lot for not being trans. Like he talks about it more than some trans comics.
And he had a direct experience with it. You know, one of his friends killed themselves because of the bullying they were getting online. Allegedly, I don't know what the whole situation is, but the story that I received through Dave Chappelle about his friend.
Gotcha. It's been, from what I've read, more complicated than that. I don't have sources on hand. But the thing that I guess, the overall thing that bugs me about it is that it is kind of under, under the buses. A lot of people, just the way he will talk about it, about being like, maybe it's my brand of anarchy, but it's like you can't presume there is a somebody needs it better first. You're fine.
There's a cough button.
But like you can't presume that there's like an order to who gets things better first. That's just not fair.
True.
Right.
But he's got a big audience, so he's going to get more exposure to that.
Yeah. But his argument is that, like, from what I saw of the material, was like basically like people need to wait their turn for me and my community. Like basically I felt like he was saying like everyone needs to wait for black people to get good first, which is like, I don't know if that's me misunderstanding it. And like I like I said, that there's better people than me to discuss that.
I don't understand that.
It felt like a lot of the material first special that was like that was very like about waiting. I don't remember the material because long enough ago I don't remember it word for word, but like it was about waiting their turn on the.
I feel like, sorry, Pat. I feel like the argument was that white queer folks have jumped the line, so to speak, and have been prioritized over the black community.
Which I don't think is invalid.
That is. Which I don't. I understand that was his perspective in that one.
Which I don't think is an invalid
Yeah.
perspective. Like I think that is totally a reason.
I think it's also completely erasing queer black folks.
Yeah,
which tend to be the people who are at the front of every progressive movement.
Bingo! Wow.
So, but what I will say, just in general about comedy, is that because it is so subjective, right? What people think is funny is going to be extremely personal to them. And I'm not saying like to the level of spirituality, but like a good poop joke is always going to make my day better. Like you could have said just a bunch of stuff that
Fart
I found
jokes are
super boring, you know, and so it's like all of us have things that are our yucks and our yums. And I try not to yuck folks' yums as long as it's not hurting other people. So that's how I look at comedy most of the time. But I also don't think that I can tell anyone what they can or can't say. I can just say how I feel about what they're saying and what it says about them.
Not even just in comedy, but just like
Well, yeah, just in
walking down the
general.
street
I
too.
think
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
applicable because, like, you're deciding to represent yourself, and obviously you're trying to represent yourself in the form of making people laugh and getting having them in a room together with you. So there's a specific style of communication that's going to work the best, and beyond that, beyond style factors, it also is going to say things about your character and what you believe. And
Or they could just be jokes.
yeah, it can just be jokes, but the longer you keep telling jokes about one certain thing, it starts to reveal something, regardless if you keep saying it's a joke over and over again.
I make a lot of jokes about pussy eating, and it's for a very specific reason. I hate pussy eating. That's reverse psychology. My literal opener for, I believe, all of my time in comedy
You
has
literally
been.
just threw me for a loop. I did not expect that to come out of you.
I know,
My
right?
opener for years now has been, my name is Patrick Thomas Perkins. I'm a pacifist, or as I prefer to call myself, a pussy, because you are what you eat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right on.
My second problem with Chappelle specifically is how much of his shit is basically, he owns a comedy club in Ohio, and
Just recently opened, yeah.
and he's for a while, besides intervening with the local politics to make sure it got up and shit, just to throw money around and shit. A lot of controversy is used when you are more profit minded than community motivated. You will use controversy for free advertising way more than you will to do community shit, right? And I think that
It's a deep cliche. Any press is good press.
Yeah,
You know?
and I think there's something.
Unless it's about how unfunny my poop joke is.
Yeah,
People
Poop
keep
jokes are going to
saying
be
it.
funny.
Keep people saying my poop jokes aren't funny.
Keep leaning into the poop
hurts.
and fart jokes.
well, no,
If your coworker fake farts at you from a couple seats away, and then you just let a little bit rip out, and they don't think that's funny,
Yeah, that's fucking.
Yeah.
you can't do that.
No.
You can't
You can.
start that. You can't
Wait, is
start
this-
that and
is
then
this-
have that reaction. Just a little. It was so little.
and this was phone person, right?
Yeah, it was one of my coworkers. No, it wasn't that one. It was the one who sits a little farther away, but also picks on me and bullies me. I get bullied at work.
One of her coworkers was trying to hang up the phone on them, and I was like,
He
"That's
just hung my phone up as soon as I picked it up to make a phone call, and I was like, "Why are you doing this to me? I don't want to be here
Jokes.
either."
yeah, but I don't know. There's I don't know. Then go to an open mic. Don't do that at work.
No, don't go to an open mic. I would not want to hear their jokes.
Open mics are tough. The one
They are
open mic I
tough.
went to to watch one or two in Portland. I think we talked about this before too at the Laugh House, Fun House. Fun
Oh,
House.
you went to the Fun House. Who
Fun
was
House.
hosting? Do you remember?
I think I said it before. It was. I'm not going to say it was Adam, but it was a big dude, maybe Pacific Islander.
Oh,
type guy.
there's
the Adam
another
Posse.
newer guy who's been doing
This
that.
was many
who I
moons
think
ago.
is Adam's friend. It might have been Adam.
I'm the other.
This was many moons ago.
But
A couple years, yeah.
Quite a couple years
And
ago.
before anybody got up there, MC got up there and was like, "Hey, we're not going to say these things, this, and this, and this." And I was like, I should have got up and left right there. It's like you're setting the fucking stage for what can be said at an open mic already. I was like, "All right, Portland, we'll see what you got."
Well, no, you.
Because I've been to comedy houses all over the place and I've seen different styles, and I was like, "You're saying what can't be said already."
Well,
So
gotta-
you know what I was saying earlier about how
Yeah.
I can
This is what I was bringing it up.
no. So I can tell you what you can't say if you want to get booked in Portland.
It's an open mic.
But
Who's looking to get
no,
booked?
but open mics are where you practice your material for getting on shows.
It can be, yeah.
So I guess I would put this in the regard of you know how some comics do clean shows, right? No swearing whatsoever.
Absolutely. Jim Gaffigan, huge.
That means you have to do your sets clean to be able to do that. And unfortunately, Portland's idea of clean is not using those words. So you have to learn how to work clean in Portland. I'm not saying that I fully agree with those restrictions, but the reason they do that is because, first off, people at the venue are going to call in, make complaints, all sorts of wild shit. it can make you lose venues. I was asked to do a show in Eugene this month, and they came back later on. They said, hey, it's going to have to be a clean set. Do you still want to do it? I was like,
no.
I said no, and I said, honestly, the main reason I really don't want to is that I do not have practice in working clean, so I don't want you to lose a venue over something that comes out of my mouth. So I can understand your frustration, and I do think that it would be great if we could have places where like you could say whatever you want. I get it. But unfortunately, if you want to work in Portland, that is what has to happen.
I wouldn't say I was frustrated about it. I stayed for it. I was a bit put off. Not enough to make me walk.
Yeah.
I stayed for it. And it was what it was.
There were still funny people. There were still unfunny people.
So to really zoom in, if you want to work in Portland, it was very Portland comedy. Portland comics.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know. Trust me. I know.
And I was like, I've come here 1 or 2, 3 times, and you've done the same set over and over. You're a Portland comic, and that's why you're doing this here and not somewhere else.
There's
big Portland comics, right? Nick, what's his name?
Part of the problem is you got to you do your set over and over again if your set is good and you're trying to get it club ready or you need to.
Sometimes you'll spend a long time polishing that.
But I know what you're talking about.
But there's that too. There's people I've met. They're still selling the same jokes that I've heard that 10 years ago.
I've been to Helium a couple times, and I've seen the same guy open. He's told the same bit the same exact way. He hasn't edited it one bit. And I sit there like stone faced looking at the guy. I'm like, come on.
But
dude, and that's the guy actually getting paid well in comedy.
Getting paid.
Hey, he's still getting paid shit. Comedy's getting paid shit.
Still, he's getting paid to do it. Yeah.
Paid.
So he's a professional. He's getting paid to do his craft.
There's a twofold problem though, which is I say this even as an anarchist, which is some people need some fucking rules, man. Because if you don't just say, hey, we can't say the F word here because everyone here is going to hate that and hate you. There's some people who are like, oh, this is the environment to say that. And sometimes I don't want to police whether or not 20 people are going to say that. I want to lay it down. So if they do say it, I can when I've run an open mic as just the host, I usually won't do that, but it's because I will watch every set to make sure oh, hey, fuck you, right? Let's all boo that man or whatever. And I
heard a guy tell a joke at my open mic that I ran a few years ago where he was thinking about what if we had carbon credits but for having child porn. There was a certain amount of child porn you're allowed to have. So for me, I like telling some things off the bat that you can't talk about because I don't want to hear that ever again in my life.
I don't know the steps you make to get there.
And it was after he'd been talking about Bill Cosby.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know the steps you take to get there either. But I don't know the steps.
You're going to have people in the crowd who you want them to stay for the rest of the open mic and give the other comedians a chance. And then someone does 2 different people do child molestation jokes in a row and kill the room.
Exactly.
A lot of it comes from not just that you can't say that. It's you're not ready to say that yet because you haven't done the work to figure out how to say it without sounding like a fucking asshole.
That's an interesting point, too. I mean, these people are coming to a comedy show. If they're going to walk, they're going to walk. But, you got 20 people on the list and the first 2.
Yeah, exactly. And
everybody walks out. You fucked up everybody else, too.
So many fucking comics think that they just get to say what they want to say, and it's the audience's fault if they didn't enjoy it. And that's really fucking shitty because you learn nothing with that attitude.
I might just had a perspective shift by you saying that because there might have been an experience where somebody got up and said something to a certain way, the crowd walked out, and now nobody's in the fucking room for the rest of these open micers. You might have just...
Yeah.
So that's part of it too.
You just changed my perspective. That's
because
interesting.
there is a queer comic in Portland who loves to open their sets by just saying the agate word really fucking loud at the whole room. And I don't like saying that word because it's been used against me as someone.
And they get a pass?
Yeah, they get a pass. They're allowed to do that. I don't really like that, but also I'm not going to tell people most of the time what to say, and they're getting booked and they're being allowed. So it's
the struggle I've always had with comedy. It's been a thing we've talked about on we've done a whole episodes on it.
We've done and in the history of comedy,
which is there's no real community motivator because we are, for a variety of reasons, there's no comedy union. The only time like that we've organized is there's been a handful of attempts to organize as a labor force. The most famous one was like the 70s or the 80s. Yeah, because a lot of us are like, oh, I'll undercut you for fame.
Yeah, we all undercut each other. I mean, I don't anymore.
Yeah, so many
I have
people.
a full-time job.
I don't do it anymore.
Well, I mean, you don't know you're doing it initially.
True.
You don't know because you don't know how much everyone else is getting fucked over all the fucking time.
Yeah.
And if there was, and I'm of the opinion that if we had better community, we would have standards and be able to have these conversations more frankly. But it is this thing of like, well, they get booked, so I guess it's fine. And it's like, well, they might get booked on a show that only they book. They might get booked on a show where like, oh, they brought the cocaine. They might get booked.
There's a
like there's a lot.
So
of
much
reasons.
of you getting booked is, do you have a car?
And like, I'm not saying that's everyone.
Can you drive
There are
us
a lot of people,
3 hours?
There are a lot of people who have shitty things to say, but they say them very funny too. That's for goddamn sure. But like, if we had a community, if we had any level of like, you're right. I don't think we could unionize, but we had like guildship or some kind of program like that. Then like I've always we should have a club. Like we should just run clubs locally.
That's what comedians are doing. Mothership, Dave Chappelle's club, comedians running clubs and having clubs.
But it would be nice if it was a collective of comedians and not just one comic.
Because then that's decidedly exclusive.
I think it
co-op.
with the Mothership. I think it totally is. Because
how many comics?
I don't think Rogan owns the thing, but there's other people on there that, Adam Egget is the head booker. Kill Tony kicks it out of there. There's people that are making decisions about who does what.
But I guess what I'm saying, and I think what Pat and I...
And it's all comedians that work there, too.
We would like it to look a little flatter still.
Like, here's the...
Like that every comedian who's in that community doesn't necessarily have a cut, but has a stake. And right now, no one has a stake anywhere because there's nothing.
So at Rogan's Club, to work there, you have to be an aspiring comedian. If you're working the door and you got a spot... Somebody covers your shift while you go do your spot and you come back.
Do you get a spot if you work there?
Do you get a spot in the club?
You guaranteed a spot if you are working there?
That would be up to the booker, I guess, if you're good enough.
And like,
you can have a spot down the street. Somebody will cover your shift. You can go do your spot and come back. This is what I've heard through the people talking about it, specifically through Kill Tony. But some of the regulars that have been on there, like Cam Patterson and Casey Rocket. The first time he got up on, it was like, hey, you've seen this guy? He's taking your tickets, blah blah blah. He comes up there, he's got a Comedy Mothership hat on. And he was like, yeah, I was working the door, and blah blah blah. And he got his spot, and then he had to go back to work. Everybody from the barbacks. Have to be some kind of aspiring type comedian to get there. Yeah,
I didn't understand.
To get the job to be, say, a door person, you got to audition.
I know a couple of cults that have worked that way too.
Absolutely, 100%.
But at the same time, like that's loosely not what I want. Like I would like it so that it's like, hey, are you an open micer? Cool. Are you interested in doing this? Let's see you at a couple of open mics, and like once a month, there's I don't know how it would work. I'm not a labor organizer, so I don't want to get bogged down.
That is interesting. I do want to look into that structure more because that sounds pretty nice.
Because it is that 50-50 of like, is it a cult? Is it?
Here's something that
whatever you want to label you want to put on it.
Here's something that we've directly interacted with though, and something that I've interacted with in my past. The Helium Comedy Club contest. You pay $25 to participate in. You do all of the advertising for your round. You get 10 of your friends free tickets, but they have to do a two item minimum at the club. You have to have enough people in the room to vote for you in the first round to push you through. So like there's all these different things. Now in Missoula, Montana, we have the Missoula Homegrown Comedy Competition. And this year, which I think this is the first year they're doing it, you are getting paid to perform.
Excellent.
So in your first round, you get paid $10 to perform on the show. And another thing that's really nice about it is
nicotine?
Oh no, thank you.
I will.
I will vibrate through walls if I do that.
Congratulations.
No, I've tried to smoke cigarettes before, and it feels like getting a
terrible delivery system.
But just nicotine in general. Anytime I've interacted with it, it's like finger in a light socket.
Best is
poisoned in a
too
dose.
strong. It's too strong for me.
I
got it in the womb, so I quit it pretty early. I do try to smoke when I'm drunk and want to impress people. It works sometimes,
I'd be impressed if you had a motorcycle. leather jacket, smoking a butt.
No,
That person's cool.
I'm
impressed.
Yeah, no, cigarettes are just hard for me to do. I'm just not cool enough.
My issue with the
You're way
helium
cool.
thing is so the worst time of year to own a bar, because I've worked
Is
in
the
a
summer.
is like, June to September, because there's better shit to do because the sun is out and you can go to the beach. You don't need to like you have more daytime, that sort
You
of thing.
can day drink somewhere beautiful.
Yeah, and so like business just slows. That's just the way it
Here.
is.
Yeah.
Here, like I don't
Like
know how
other
it
places,
is.
it's probably different. But in Portland, people are usually out doing things.
And so, like, that's just the slow time of year for comedy, too, because people don't want to go into a bar to listen to jokes.
So
when
Portland
you can...
Comedy, the Helium Comedy Club does this to float their business through the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I'm just talking about the business structure in general. And then the one back in Missoula, that's not starting until this fall,
Mm-hmm.
which is the time the college students are back in town. They're going to be able to fill it out. They
Yep.
do it in an independent movie theater
Good timing,
in
yeah.
the Hip Strip. And so I think you're right in that there are these places where we can see things being done better.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's a lot of my goal when I do comedy and Pat as well. So, like, that's the reason I would like to run an open mic, because
Yeah,
I feel
be
like
the change you want to see. Fucking do it.
well, and running an open mic is eating your vegetables.
It's going to the gym.
What if
It's
you're
like
allergic to
going to the
vegetables? Okay, going to the gym. I can relate
like
to that
that.
more. Yeah, right on.
You're allergic to vegetables?
Some people are.
But are you?
I don't know. I
Do
haven't
you
taken
have
this.
any allergies?
I don't know.
I'm allergic to Portland. Like, whatever plants are fucking, I'm allergic to most of them. So I take Zyrtec and Flonase every day. Otherwise, I pee out of my face.
I'm picturing you peeing out of your face.
Yeah, I've had
with
to-
everything else.
I have to stuff tissue paper up my nose at food. Like, when I was working bakery jobs, I would do that. And they're like, that's not very food safe. I'm like, the alternative is less food safe.
Nice. Yeah.
So what would you like me to do?
Exactly.
I did want to finish my thought on the helium thing, which is
Push
like,
it.
I would love a model where it's like, hey, we do that exact same thing of like, hey, you pay $25 to join for a year the comedy club, and in return you do all of that shit that you were talking about, like at Rogan's Club. My model just doesn't have a central buyer or dude in charge. It's a community,
Yeah,
the same way like a union would work.
I think it's some way
And,
more
like,
of a
hit the
union would be
button.
better.
Red flag comes down, hammer sickle.
We gotta get that
Well,
on.
no,
I'm,
I mean,
I'm
like,
doing that right
yeah,
now.
for
Hold on.
sure.
I'm sure there's a.
No, just do the Tetris theme song. That's
but I mean-
Russian, right?
This one.
For sure.
I've read a book before.
You know, like
Lots of pictures.
Once upon a time, I would be embarrassed of that, but like, no, for sure. Like, why not? Yes. I want to also kill the intellectuals, I think.
Is that the Tetris theme?
No.
Yeah, you went real
He's
hard, Holmes.
a different communism.
Yeah.
Look how ready he is.
I just want to stop with the czar. I don't want to kill the intellectuals. Some of them are my friends.
Comedians.
I'm more
the comedy store.
Kropotkin anarchist. Each according to their ability, each according to their need.
Comedians owning comedy clubs. I think it's great. Alcoholics owning bars. Maybe not so much. People who are good with food.
Yeah, no, I
Owning
think,
restaurants instead of having, I have a lot of money, so I'm opening a restaurant.
What? I love when people with money play restaurateur or bakereur. I know that's not the word, but you know what I'm saying.
French.
Well, here's-
Your French is excellent.
I found out I'm not as French
Pronunciation.
as I thought I was. I might be more Spanish, and my life has been forever changed.
that is wild. Rochelle could.
Yeah, Rochelle Lynn Cody. Everyone in my family has French names. My mom thought she was all French. It sounds like she might be half Spanish.
Maybe she's French Canadian.
No, but there is Canada in there too.
Oh, you got
We're all over the place. My dad's from Sacramento. Yeah.
I mean, there's entirely a branch of, I can't remember which labor theory, where it's like if you.
Labor theory.
Yeah, like that's
Pat
what you
reads
call.
theory.
That's what you call.
I read about theory in college, but usually
Theory
didn't read the
nerds.
theory
Oh my
because
God.
it was too dense.
Well, no, I didn't read the theory. I read somebody explaining it because I'm too fucking spazzy
Well,
to read the whole
theory
damn
is
thing.
typically not written well for the basic reader.
somebody can always condense it quicker, and basically it's like
Editing.
yeah, you'll always. It's not a point of hiring managers based on like who wants to be manager, so much as like letting whoever's going to be a good manager manage. Right, and that distinction is there is a model of like competition and a model of like just
I think
cooperation.
competition is helpful, but I think there
Yeah.
needs to be more collaboration and cooperation.
That's the word I was
There's a
looking
lot of C's. C's.
And like if you make it
I put
based
4
on,
C's in there, but I felt like that was more fun.
Yeah.
if you make things like, if you make things that people like, I'm of the opinion that like, yeah, not everyone is going to be hilarious every time they go on stage, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to tell jokes or whatnot. And I think there's a variety of ways to support comedy that aren't just going on stage and telling jokes.
I got in a really
And,
tough
like,
fight with my close
there's-
friend over this exact conversation.
Writing jokes is a skill all of its own. People have it, some people don't, right? Going on stage and telling jokes is a skill. Some people have it, some people don't. Being able to understand how to operate the system well enough that like people telling jokes works, because it's not the same like fucking sound volume and shit as a stage show, like a music show, right? Like it's a different setup because you have a different audience in a different building. Like all of those aspects are important to comedy. It's the experience. It's the whole thing. But we get focused on this one job because this is like the central focus job of person in front of us with the mic telling the joke. When it's this broader thing of like the person at the door making sure you're comfortable
It's
coming
top
in.
down, side to side, you know?
And so like it's frustrating to me when comedians discount those people because I can hold a mic and tell jokes. When I'm like, maybe this is like the part of me that went to school and did both front of theater and back of theater and was like, both of these parts are important to the production. But like,
In a restaurant, front of house, back of house, dishwasher's the most important person.
yeah.
You
And
know,
like,
and then at Rogan's Club, it's like, you know, that door person's not going to motherfuck you because they've ate a bag
Hey.
of dicks on fucking stage just before you.
Do you want to know my real beef with Joe Rogan?
I mean, he's going to watch this.
Good.
He's going to DM me.
Oh, hey,
You
buddy.
want to know what my real beef is?
I'm going to tell him to DM you again. Yeah.
Guy who would say, "Oh, I'm gonna go do dishes at my job," would do it so he could listen to Joe Rogan, and then he would just spend way too long in the dish pit when there weren't any dishes left to do. So, most important part of the back of house left me for Joe Rogan every night.
Abandonment issues.
I didn't know.
But I also got him to realize something that he wanted to have happen. There's a comedian who Pat and I have both worked with named Iris Jean Gorman who likes to punch people in the face consensually. Like if they want to get punched in the face, she'll do it. He wanted to get punched in the face that night. We were at the bar. I was there. I was like, guys, we got to get this done. So I do a lot of good things for people.
It sounds like it. Interesting friend group.
I mean, Iris is a whole nother beast.
I think she's.
I think she has.
Can you
I'm
quit
happy.
comedy?
Yeah, I mean,
Some people can if they're smart.
I've got shows coming up, but
Yeah.
you can't. I need money. That's mainly
I
what
got
that
shows
was.
coming up.
I'm going to do Sanctuary
okay,
in November. I'm so
Congratulations.
excited. I haven't done the sex club in a really long time. My friend Justin's like, I'll be there and I'll be having sex while you're performing. I'm like, please don't.
I was like, can you stop for a little bit?
Just
and
take a break.
Yeah,
I've
I need
performed,
fucking
but I haven't
applause and
done
shit.
any
Laughs.
stand up there.
Yeah, you have performed there, but not done stand-up. I've only done stand-up there and then saw the other stuff and I was like, whoa!
Blinders on.
It was more just like, people like this. All right. And being like, I don't know how I feel. I'm probably going to go now.
Yeah.
That was a lot of
You
it.
got to address the elephant in the room.
It was fascinating though, because like I guess I should have known there would be people who are like this, but you grow up very closeted Christian, and then you come out here.
Or at least like time out. I gotta DM my dom. I didn't know